everybody. This is Guitar Virtuosi Moscow Guitar Festival number 12. And today we started with Orchestra Night with Evgeny Svetlanov Symphony Orchestra, which is one of the top Russian orchestras, conducted by Mikhail Agrest from USA. And we have different soloists from different countries like Russia, Chile, Brazil, France, and I think it was a pretty amazing opening.
It was a great pleasure to take part in the opening of this wonderful festival. I've worked with this orchestra before, the State Orchestra of Russia. They're fantastic musicians, but I have never worked with this wonderful guitar soloist. I've done some guitar concertos, particularly Aranjuez, Concerto Aranjuez, which is of course often played, but the other concertos were new for me, and they're absolutely fantastic music, and especially the Mignone I've never heard, and it's never really done, and I'm really going to take this impulse and really discover his music and try to find some symphonic music to perform. The challenge or the interesting part of doing such a guitar gala is that every soloist has his own brilliant talent and personality and kind of own breath and own way of thinking, and for each concerto we have to really quickly adjust to that to make it work, to become one, to be on the same wavelength. But it was absolutely wonderful to collaborate with four such great musicians from, and each one of them comes from a different part of the world and brings their own culture, own kind of temperament to this. The first concerto that we performed was Castelnuovo Tedesco with Jeremy Jouve, and it's a very light neoclassical concerto, and he has a really brilliant kind of French transparent way of music making, which I thought made this concerto really wonderful and transparent and really fun to play.
First, I suggested to Artyom to play a concerto by a French composer, Henri Tomasi, and for different reasons it was not possible to play this time. And then we discussed, and I suggested different concertos, and we decided to play this, which is great because I always loved the music by Castelnuovo Tedesco, really love it. And for me it was the first time I performed the concerto, so it was also really exciting to learn this concerto and to be able to play with in such a wonderful place. So that's how I came to this concerto. Very fine writing, I think, for orchestra and guitar. It's I think there's never conflict between guitar and orchestra, which could happen, in some concertos. So it's really a very, very pleasant music to play. And what I like probably is the lyrism in this music. it's always singing. There's also influence of Italian music. Of course, he was Italian, but also he lived in USA. He wrote music for Hollywood movies. And you can feel, especially in the last movement, you can feel a little bit of this spirit of action movie. And also some Spanish influences. You can hear, especially in the second movement. And of course, this influence, especially Spanish influence, I love it.
Fabio Zanon did a brilliant job with the Mignone Concerto, and I'm really grateful to have discovered this composer. And this concerto is, like I said, rarely played, and which caused some problems because the materials, we had to do a bit of corrections in the parts, and it was a challenge. And it's a very difficult concerto, very complex rhythms, but it was. For me, it was a discovery, and he's a really virtuoso guitarist.
Francisco Mignone, he was a complete musician. He was a tremendous composer with incredible training. He was a conductor, teacher, pianist, and he had a very successful career, a very long career through the 20th century. And at the end of his life, when he was already 80 years old, he took an interest on the guitar, especially through Brazilian guitarist Carlos Barbosa Lima. And he wrote 12 etudes for the guitar, various shorter pieces. And in 1977, he wrote this concerto. Concerto is very interesting. The first movement is like a big rhapsody with lots of changes of mood. And the second one is a bit more like a serenade in a kind of impressionistic way. And the last one, he mixes up all the Brazilian African rhythms in a very successful way. Difficult writing for the orchestra. They had a very, very hard job to play that because it goes a bit against the training of a classical musician, to play everything short with an accent. It's exactly what we are trained not to do. So they did a tremendous job. So yeah, this piece hasn't been much played outside of Brazil. I started playing that around 1999 and have played almost every year since. audiences here, in general, tend to be very, very large and very attentive. Actually, you know, Russian audiences are the best in the world, to my mind. I mean, you can really feel that people are with you. But playing with an orchestra is a different feeling. First of all, because the quality of Russian orchestras is proverbial, and playing with this orchestra for the first time, it's wonderful strings, such a full and silky sound, and all the solos from the woodwind so well done and so musical, so that singing tone all the time. It of course inspires you, because a big audience, a wonderful orchestra together with you, and yeah, it's a different atmosphere. Latin American guitar traditions, they are very different from each other. So the guitar played in Brazil has nothing to do with Argentina. Argentina has nothing to do with Venezuela, and so on and so forth. Each one has its own rhythms, its own tradition. In Brazil, of course, the guitar is the national instrument, is what everybody plays. Most of Brazilian traditional and popular music is played with guitar, and it has a certain style that it is relaxed, is short, is very rhythmic. The rhythm is very offbeat all the time, so you get used to playing that kind of offbeat in a kind of, I wouldn't say delicate, but in a kind of mischievous way. It feels like we are not, making accents on the notes. We are just throwing light on the notes or hiding the notes. So it of course gives a different groove to the music. It's certainly much different from Spanish guitar, and of course that transferred to the classical guitar as well. On the other hand, Brazilian way of playing classical guitar is usually very colorful and very solid in terms of being real concert performance, playing with full sound. That is something that you see in most Brazilian concert guitarists. So yeah, there's a mix of both things. This thing of being very serious on the classical side of it, but at the same time having that groove to the playing.
Antonio Escobar performed the concerto de Aranjuez, the greatest hit, as we could say, but he put so much personality into it that it didn't feel like it's a piece that is played so often. It was really, really fresh.
this concert you have so many different emotions, and they touch you very in a very deep way, and special of course second movement, but there are also a lot of fresh moments. First movement, for example, also the intensity of some kind of bulería, for example, a bit flamenco spirit in the first movement, very rhythmic as well, and the last movements have this kind of a renaissance or baroque dance. Rodrigo always looked to the past, to the early times when Spain had this great times during the 16th century and 17th century.
Concerto de Aranjuez is the one we see perform most often, so it's nice to see a friend like Jose Antonio Escobar, who's such a great guitarist, playing that in a kind of very sensitive, very energetic way. It's a piece that we sense a big difference from one player to the other, so it's always interesting to watch it.
Artyom Dervoed played the new commission Stephen Goss concerto, which quite incredibly I think he received only a couple of weeks ago, a week ago, and it's amazing how virtuosic he played, how quick he learned it, and he has such an amazing improvisational style. For example, there are a couple of cadences that were quite simple in rehearsals, and then in the concert he just amazed all of us with this really spontaneous, very tasteful improvisation during the cadences, and in general his way of playing is really brilliant and improvisatory style, and it's never boring it would be never boring to accompany him and to make music with him.
Stephen Goss, British composer. Some time ago I asked him if he would like to write something on the Carnival of Venice theme, and he told me like, yeah, I have to think about it. So afterwards somehow I convinced him, but he did the job much better than I expected, because I thought it will be just some kind of another set of variations on the famous theme, but in the end his idea of choosing different masks, which was the part of the Carnival of Venice, using the themes of different composers who used to write that kind of music connected to those masks.
It's a bit like, you see those pictures, where is Wally? You're always searching for the cues that he's giving about Schumann, Richard Strauss, and Ravel, and Mascagni. So it's a bit of a big collage where you have to search for Carnavale di Venezia there. It was a very intriguing piece, at the same time very well written for the guitar, and it's terrifically played by the orchestra. The conductor did a great job, and the audience here is incredible. So yeah, big atmosphere. I'm very pleased with this festival.
It's always great to have a possibility to chat with a composer who has written this piece, because usually as a classical musicians we have the score, but we never rarely have the opportunity to ask Beethoven, or we can't ask Beethoven or Mozart, how would you like this bar played? But in this case, when there's the performers there and the composer is there, you can really dig into it and have some input, which is always an enlightening experience.
Tonight's concert was completely sold out. There is 1,500 seats in the famous Tchaikovsky Hall, and we hope that all the other concerts will be sold out too. And of course, I'm really happy that classical guitar can be that popular. Thank you.